Hey guys, Pastor Quinn here with your weekly word to help you prepare to teach this week. All right, we are in 1 Samuel chapters 4 through 6, and we are covering the capturing of the Ark of the Covenant. A couple of quick things before we get started. Just want to make sure you guys know what the Ark of the Covenant is about and what's kind of going on with it. So the Ark of the Covenant is representative of God's presence with Israel. Inside are contained the manna from the wilderness and the staff that that Aaron had that budded, and also the tablets that Moses wrote the law on that was given to him at Mount Sinai by God. All this stuff is in the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant resided in the tabernacle. There were a lot of rules around it. When they would carry it, they couldn't touch it and different things like that. I'm sure you know the story of the two that did touch it and then they just fell over and died. That's actually a little bit later in the story. The Ark of the Covenant is very significant for the Israelites. The problem is that the Israelites began to treat it like it was just any other deity. See, in this time and in this culture, it was common for there to be statues or totems or things like that to represent all the pagan idols, the pagan gods that different groups worshipped and idolized. And so the Israelites began to fall into that same trap and do the exact same thing, treating the Ark of the Covenant as their God rather than the God that the Ark of the Covenant actually represented. So today in our story, we're going to find out that a couple of things happen. Number one, we're going to find the Israelites fail to trust God. Because of that, God allows them to be defeated. But that doesn't mean that God is defeated, because even though the Israelites were defeated, God still ultimately had that victory. And that's going to remind us and point to the fact that God has ultimate victory in Jesus Christ. So let's break all this down. When we open up at the beginning of chapter 4, we're going to notice something right off the bat, that there is a battle taking place. When this battle happens, the Israelites go and they try to line up against the Philistines and fight them, and it goes bad. It's not catastrophic, but it is bad. 4,000 Israelite men die in this siege. And so the Israelites do what they do best. They come up with a plan to fix it. They say, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? They decide they're going to take the Ark of the Covenant and they're going to have it fight its battle. They said, well, we had the Ark of the Covenant in the past. All we got to do is take the good luck charm out here to the battle, and then we can win. So they take this good luck charm, the Ark of the Covenant, but they fail to actually trust in God. There's no prayer. There's no appeal to God. There's no sacrifice. There's nothing. They just take the Ark of the Covenant and assume that they're going to win this battle because they have the good luck charm with them. Well, God allows them to be very, very defeated. We see this in verses 10 and 11. It says the Philistines fought and Israel was defeated, and each man fled to his tent. Check this out. The slaughter was severe. 30,000 of the Israelite foot soldiers fell. The Ark of the Covenant was captured, and Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. So we are seeing the beginnings of God's prophecy revelation to Samuel come to light here. He's saying that, yes, his sons died, just like I said that they would, and also 30,000 men died. So what was 4,000 men has now become 30,000 men because they failed to trust God and try to take matters into their own hands. We also see there the Ark of God was captured. So the Israelites are probably flipping out, right? They're probably losing their trust in God. But I want you to check this out. After they did this, even though the Israelites are despondent and the Israelites have been defeated, that does not mean that God was defeated. See, the Ark of the Covenant went with the Philistines, and they actually take it to their temple of Dagon, the god that they worship. And so Dagon's statue is this gigantic statue, and it's in the center of their temple to Dagon, this giant towering statue. And they take this little box with these little poles, and they set it down next to the statue of Dagon. Literally, Dagon's statue is towering over the God of the Israelites. Because again, you got to keep in mind that the general thought at this time was that the God itself was contained within this structure. So they put him there, and then the next day, the Philistines go in there, and they find the shrine to Dagon toppled over. Well, they lift it back up, think nothing of it. The next day they go back in there, they find it toppled over again, and now it's broken into pieces. And they realize that God has had something to do with this, the God of the Israelites, the God in the box. But they still don't act on it. Because then after that, the whole town is infected with tumors. And after these tumors happen, that's when it seems like the Philistines really get it. They say, guys, we got to get this thing out of here. We've got to send this thing back to the Israelites. So the third point there is that God still had the victory over the Israelites, or over the Philistines at the end of the day. And the Israelites were still honored and all that stuff. Now, we do want to point out here that it wasn't about the Israelites really winning the victory. It's about God demonstrating his power over these false idols. It's about God demonstrating that when his people aren't faithful, he is still faithful. It's about God saying that all of these false idols that people are worshiping are not the real God. It's the same thing we saw in Egypt. It's the same thing we saw when Joshua took over the land. It's the same thing we see now. God is continually demonstrating his power over these false gods. He is magnifying his own name. Well, the reason we're pointing all that out is because at the end of the day, the Israelites tried to do something on their own that they couldn't do. They failed. But God provided the victory that the Israelites tried to win on their own. The same thing is true for us. There are so many people that try to find their way into heaven or morality or being good or whatever you want to call that. They try to do that on their own, and they never even, appeal to God, worship God, acknowledge God as Lord and King. See, the problem that the Israelites had was that the Philistines had defeated them. The problem that we have is that there's sin in our life. And so for us, we have to realize that we actually can't solve that problem on our own, but we can trust in God to be faithful and good and solve the problem. And he did in the work of Jesus Christ. So we're going to have a gospel presentation here talking about how God does give us victory. We're going to highlight the fact that Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And we know that if you fall short of the glory of God, the punishment is death. That's Romans 6:23. And then, of course, Romans 10 and 9 and 10. And the distinctive here this week is I'm going to have the kids, I'm going to challenge the kids to tell me these verses before I say them. I'm going to challenge them to tell me the reference before I say them, because we want to start now to build their ability to tell the gospel. Guys, if these kids leave our kids ministry and they only know 3 verses for a gospel conversation, Romans 3:23, 6:23, and 10, 9, and 10, if they only know those 3, they know enough to share the gospel with somebody and lead somebody else to Christ. And that needs to be our focus as we continue on. We want to make sure that we're not just telling them this stuff, but that we are actually helping them to hide it in their heart. Kids learn through questions. We want to make sure we're providing questions for them to be able to answer and kind of embed all that stuff within them. So as always, I'm so thankful for you guys. You guys do an incredible job. You're wonderful at what you do, and I appreciate your heart to serve. If you have any questions this week, just holler and let me know. Take care.